I'll be reading Lethargy and Phil. Blue light is the new daylight. At least, this has become the case for Finnegan McElroy, the college student that has missed hundreds of dollars worth of classes in the past few weeks in order to stay in his apartment and count flies. It had begun with a stomach bug. He'd chosen to tough it out and go to his morning class, regardless of the coil of heat in his tummy, but halfway through the lecture, he'd run out of the room and vomited into the nearest trash can. When he'd gone back, the class doors were locked. Desperate for an excuse, he'd gone home to brush his teeth and sleep. Since then, he hasn't gotten up from his bed. He's no idea what day it is, only that Judge Judy comes on every day at 4, and he's heard the theme at least 6 times, and must have slept through it at least once. Since the first day, he's still been sick. The bug had made him expel any last morsel in his stomach, and the excruciating lethargy had prevented him from getting up to eat. Soon enough, he was vomiting stomach acid and water all over himself every time he woke, from either the sickness, the hunger, or both. One of his most prominent memories since the first day is lying awake in bed with Judge Judy yelling at him, wondering if he'd ever painted his ceiling green or if it was a reflection of his face. It couldn't have been the television. It was casting blue light all over his body, and he wasn't sure if it was really the judge's light or death punishing him for not eating. Weeks later, the television turns off. It is not due to unpaid bills. Finn stole cable from his neighbor, but due to unannounced visitors. God damn, the younger officer holds his nose in a pinch. This guy's neighbor must have been wondering why they moved the city dump next door. The elder officer follows the former into the dark room. With the TV off, it is pitch black, so they turn on the lights. Unappalled, the elder shakes his head. What is this, the 4th in a month? The room is filthy, infested with maggots and flies, the smell of stale vomit mixing with rotting flesh. In the bed is a corpse already well on its way to decomposition, covered with both things that make up the stench. My eyes are watering, the younger spits through grit teeth. Can't we leave this to cleanup crew? The elder rolls his eyes and walks directly into the stink. Apparently, he says, pulling gloves from his suit pocket, this is something we'll have to get used to. The younger officer does not want to get used to this. He puts on his own gloves and hesitantly follows his partner. In the past weeks, many corpses have been found in their homes only because people noticed their absence. Each one so far has been someone who had been in their peak of health, not likely to die in their sleep or suddenly lose the ability to move. However, this body has one thing dissimilar from the rest. It's covered in vomit. The only correlation had been the strange circumstances, but the presence of puke is off-putting. Soon enough, the detectives find themselves within the pristine white walls of a coroner's office. Why anyone would want to spend all of their time with corpses baffles the younger detective. I can't do an autopsy, the coroner says. The body has been decomposing for so long it would be practically pointless. He had been examining the body, which had been a messy pain in the ass to transport across town, but he turns from it to take off his gloves and sit at his computer. But there are a few tests I can do that would be worthwhile. The first few bodies had been dismissed. Anything that isn't reeking of murder and happens only once or twice usually is. But at an alarming 5 mysterious deaths like this in the past month, the detective had been slightly off. This body and the last 2 had been examined for correlations. So far, there has been nothing close to a breakthrough, but the presence of vomit on this one is giving everyone on the otherwise unsatisfactory case hope that everything will come together. It takes a while for all of the test results to come back. Meanwhile, each detective attempts to figure out what exactly happened to each of the victims. It turns out that the most recent victim had been a student at the college down the road from where they'd found him. The older detective is following another lead around this time, one that the younger considers a wild goose chase, so the younger goes down to the college alone. McElroy, the professor, sits behind his desk, and the detective sits in the closest student's chair. The professor takes some time to look through his database of students. He was in my morning class. The man leans back in his chair. Hasn't come back since I locked him out of the lecture hall for running out in the middle of class. He passed away, sir. The detective clears his throat. That's why I'm here. Well, all I know is that he was a decent student. He must have been sick. The younger detective determines from that interaction and many other equally uninforming ones with students that Finnegan must have had some kind of virus. Why he didn't go to the doctor, or move in general, is still unknown to him. The coroner's results get back to the detectives after both of their separate leads fall through. The results are, in short, unsatisfying. Although the victim did have a stomach bug, it wasn't the cause of death. In fact, attached to the results is a note from the coroner stating that none of the bodies had a single thing wrong with them that would lead to an early death. They must have just forgotten to move.